Hey everybody, Keith Hilson with the Trombone Shop at Schmidt Music here, and we are here today to answer the question, is this the world's perfect trombone mouthpiece? As you might have guessed, the answer is no. So this is actually a mouthpiece blank, an unfinished mouthpiece in brass. Started the turning process, didn't finish it up, haven't played it obviously or anything here. So obviously not the world's best mouthpiece for a variety of reasons, but frankly, I could grab any other mouthpiece and say the exact same thing because there is no world's perfect mouthpiece. I always say if there was one mouthpiece that worked for everybody, that's the only mouthpiece I would carry in the shop here. That's the only mouthpiece anybody would play. Does not exist because we are so different as players. Our physiologies, our playing styles, our airflow, our lung capacity, on and on and on. All of these different components are so different. There is no one perfect mouthpiece. But hopefully we can, through doing some talking here, find a mouthpiece that's perfect for you. So today I'm going to be talking about mouthpiece anatomy, all of the different components of the mouthpiece that all together create all of these differences we see in the mouthpiece. When we're talking about mouthpieces, there are a number of different parts of the mouthpiece, all of which have an impact of how the mouthpiece sounds for us as individuals, how it responds, how it plays, how it feels for us. So we talk about things like cup width, how wide or how narrow the cup is. We talk about cup depth, how deep or how shallow the cup is. We talk about the throat and backbore. The throat is the bottom of the cup where it narrows down inside, and the backbore is where it tapers back open as it leads into the instrument itself. We talk about the rim shape. There are different rim shapes, thicknesses or thinnesses of the rim that are going to make a difference. And we even talk about the blank size, the outside of the mouthpiece, how heavy or how light the mouthpiece is. So let's start off with cup width. This is kind of the first area that a lot of people pay attention to with the mouthpiece because for a lot of us, it's the first thing we notice. So we have two different sizes here, very different cup widths, obviously. So cup width is going to affect a number of different things. Typically, the wider the cup width is, the darker, the broader the sound is going to be. Typically, the narrower the cup width is, it's going to have a brighter, more focused sound. But for a lot of people, we find that cup width really has a big impact with how the mouthpiece feels, how it responds for us, because this is the component that really affects how much of the embouchure is actually being involved in the vibrating process. The cup width with the rim provides the support, right? So how much or how little of the lip structure are we getting involved in the vibration process? That's going to make a huge difference in how everything else with the mouthpiece works. So that cup width is the first thing that a lot of people notice with this. Now that very often is combined with cup depth. So typically we find that with a deeper cup, it's going to give us, again, a darker, larger, broader sound because a deeper cup slows down that airflow. It helps to, again, slow it down as it's moving its way into the throat and backbore. It makes a lot of sense that typically the wider the cup is, the deeper it is as well. Conversely, a shallower cup is a lot of times going to get the air moving quicker. It's going to help, brighten up the sound a little bit. It's going to focus it a little bit more. The cup width or cup depth also has a big impact on the range of the mouthpiece as well. Typically, again, a larger mouthpiece, when we say larger in terms of the width and in terms of the depth, is going to give us more access to the lower register. It's going to be easier for us to play in the lower register because we're getting more of the lip involved. We're slowing down the air flow, both of which help support the lower register. Now again, conversely, a smaller mouthpiece, especially a shallower cup, helps to support the upper register, gets the air moving a little bit faster. But just like everything else, there is a balance to that. If you go too big, depending on who you are as a player, if you go too big, you start to lose some control. You start to lose the responsiveness, the core to the sound. If you start going too small, again, same thing. It's going to be very difficult to get the mouthpiece to respond for you. The sound can get very, very bright and sometimes airy. So just like everything else, there is a balance to that. So next, we have the throat and backbore. So again, the throat is what we have, when we narrow down, the bottom of the cup narrows down to. So the exact size of that bat, or the throat, can make a difference with that. Now again, very often that is tied into what's happening with the cup width and the cup depth as well. But there can be some differences. So we've got two Bach mouthpieces here. I've got a Bach 6.5 AL, one of the standards, and a Bach 6.5 A. The only difference between these two is that the A has a little bit smaller throat and backbore on it. So a little bit difficult to tell, but you can see if you look between these two that the A has you can see it's a little bit smaller in the throat. Now that's going to affect, again, that airflow, that airspeed. A lot of players find that if, a little bit larger throat like the AL has, maybe it's not restrictive enough. We talk about resistance as if it's a bad thing. Resistance is not a bad thing. It's how we balance that resistance. So sometimes providing just a little bit more resistance with that airflow as it's moving through the bottom of the cup can help to, again, to focus the sound a little bit, help it to slot, to center a little bit easier. It may help support the upper register, but we may not lose out on the sound, the depth of sound that we get in the lower register. So we have the throat. The backbore, again, is what happens after we have the throat. When it starts expanding out through the shank of the mouthpiece, that's going to affect how it plays as well. So we have, again, a Bach 6.5 AL. This is a comparable Schilke mouthpiece. So we can see between the two of these that, we see what the throat is doing here versus the Schilke. The Schilke opens up more. In fact, it has a little chamfer on the inside to help ease the airflow as it's heading into the instrument. There's not a right or wrong answer. It's different. That airflow is going to make a difference for us. Again, all of those components, how it sounds for us, how it responds, how it feels for us. So then we talked about rim shape. So we can have different thicknesses of the rim and different shapes itself. So we have a Dennis Wick mouthpiece here. One of the reasons a lot of people like the Dennis Wick mouthpieces is compared with some of the others, it has a little bit flatter rim. The exact contour of that rim is going to make a difference. For some folks, they like a little bit flatter rim. They feel like it secures, it helps the notes, again, to center a little bit more. Some other players find that too flat of a rim affects flexibility. It's more difficult to move through the partials, move from the lower register to the upper register, and vice versa with all of that. What's happening, especially on the inner rim, can also make a difference. A lot of folks find that a softer inner rim is maybe a little bit more comfortable. It is, helps to support sound, broadens out the sound a little bit. A lot of folks find that a sharper inner rim helps with articulation. We can get a little bit more clarity when we're trying to get a crisp, clear diction to the front of the note. But again, for some folks, it may be a little bit more uncomfortable. Now, we can also have differences in the width of the rim as well. So here we've got a Bach 1.5G, obviously very, very thin rim, at least in comparison, compared to this. Now this is a specialty Parduba mouthpiece, but we can see there's some real differences in the width of the rim between those two. Now that's a little extreme, but that's something that's going to come into play. And again, especially with the comfort of the mouthpiece, how it feels on our face, the width of the rim can have a big impact on the endurance that you have as well. Some folks find that too thin of a rim becomes uncomfortable. It's a very small, pressure point on the lip structure. That's, again, sometimes it can be, more difficult to play for long periods of time on too thin of a rim. Vice versa, on too thick of a rim, it can be uncomfortable. The control is different with it. So another thing to pay attention to. And finally, we can have the blank size as well. So we see here again between the two of these, I've got a Dennis Wick here. The Dennis Wicks are known for having a fairly light blank size. So there's a lot of the outside structure of the mouthpiece is cut away here, making the mouthpiece itself very, relatively light, versus one of the Megatone mouthpieces here. The whole idea with this is that it has a much larger blank size, so it's a much heavier mouthpiece. Why that makes a difference is because the mouthpiece has a big part of channeling the vibration we're creating here into the instrument. So a lot of folks find that the weight of the mouthpiece, how much mass is in the mouthpiece and how it channels that vibration into the instrument makes a difference. Some people like the lightness and the flexibility that you get out of a lighter mouthpiece. Other folks like how a heavier mouthpiece can darken up the sound, give it a little bit more core, helps things to center, to slot. A lot of times they find that the response of a heavier mouthpiece at upper dynamics is more controlled. But again, a lot of differences with all of this. So mouthpiece anatomy, that's certainly one part of it, but how does this come into play for you? So what we're going to be doing next in the next video is talking about how do you find the perfect mouthpiece for you. When I have somebody come in, what do I pay attention to with them? How do we go through that process to help them figure out what is the best mouthpiece for them? We're going to take all of this theory and put this into play and hopefully help you find the mouthpiece that's right for you. So hopefully you enjoyed the video here. If you liked the video, think about giving us a thumbs up. If you have any comments about anything I talked about today, of course, leave those in the comments below here. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please think about doing that. We're always trying to create new, fresh content for you that's hopefully interesting. And as always, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So thanks for watching.